All right, welcome back to episode 12. I am Derek.
And I'm Mike.
That's what he said, and we're still working on our intro. Though I will give a shout out to Christina Collins hooking us up with Chris. We got some pretty good insight on what we need to do to start editing and doing some intros. And so it's my goal, man. Is you and I trying to put our heads together between now and the end of the year to clean this up a little bit going into 2021.
Yeah, I feel like we've said this 1,000 times, but yeah, we need to make some time together and do this.
We tried to do an episode a couple Sundays ago, and we had a little bit of fun during the day, and we thought it'd be a good idea to go outside. And I think we forgot it's daylight savings time, and it gets dark earlier. So we were sitting out at the patio at the Willard here down in Franklin, and 20, 20 minutes in, the sun went, and it's windy, and I was listening to it, and the sound was bad, and we were all over the place. So we're just gonna tuck that one away for me and you, and you know better episodes
Hey,
ahead. But
it was good friend talk. It was a good time.
no, it
You all
was.
missed it. Sorry.
Um, well, hey, I know it's been a couple weeks since we've had an episode, and what I wanted to do on this one, we've or you have hinted around in the past, everything that you've learned through the one toxic, unhealthy relationship that you had post divorce, and so I wanted to kind of spend this episode diving a little bit deeper into that experience, your emotions and feelings around it. Um, you know where you're at the beginning, in the middle, at the end, just any and everything that you kind of learned from it. And so again, part of the reason why we're doing this is we're trying to be vulnerable, and there's one of the things that I've definitely learned since doing this and just having conversations with a lot of people, especially men. There's there's a lot of guilt and shame and pain that people bottle up, and they never process. And so if we can just get one or two people to relate to our stories, to your story, to my story, and maybe that triggers something inside of them to just be better, to get emotionally and mentally in a better spot. That's our goal.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly what we're trying to do. And yeah, I agree 100%.
All right. So with that, spend a few minutes again. I know. So you were divorced, and then I know that if I remember right, I think you casually dated or whatever before you had met her, and so just kind of talk about where you were in life, what was going on, where you're working, what you're doing, and then ultimately how you met her.
I had been divorced for years. I I wasn't trying to date anyone. Like I wasn't like looking around to find people to fall back in love with. Like I kind of was jaded about, you know, just the whole getting back into a relationship thing. I just didn't want the pain that could come with it, I guess. But after so long, you get lonely and you get kind of like bored, especially now that you don't have nights with kids. I'm doing nothing but working out. I'm like all in shape. Like, I'm like, oh, okay, well, maybe I'll get on the dating app and just kind of see what's up. Not really looking for anything, just maybe just finding some people to talk to. So I did that, which was probably a mistake. I went on, and the one I went on, I don't even know why I did this one. It was OK Cupid. No idea why I did it, but I got on there. I talked to girls. Like I was kind of doing exactly what I was wanting to do. I was just talking to girls. I was having fun. It was nothing serious. It was definitely filling in those lonely nights when I don't have the kids. I'm just sitting there in the empty house, and I felt like it was working really well. And then I don't know if it had just been because even though I was with women and I was telling myself like this is just fun. It's not going to be anything else. Like I definitely had moments where I was like, man, it does feel good. Like would feel good to have somebody back in my life. I think I finally got to that point. I'm talking, this is probably 3 or 4 years now. Like, it's not like there's everything I had healed and everything I figured out from marriage. I didn't have anything hanging over other than I just wasn't sure what I wanted to do next. So, yeah, I got on that site and
Can I pause you real quick there?
Yeah.
So like when you say like I didn't know what I wanted to do next, and we've talked about how important now, like where we are in life, like around boundaries and all that stuff. Would you say like even though you were working out and feeling better about yourself and like there were lonely nights, like did you go into it because you weren't necessarily looking, to wife anybody up or have a girlfriend? Like, did you have like an idea of like, all right, here are the things that like I'm gonna look for, or like this is I'm gonna be set on this, or I'm gonna hold my ground on this, or it's just like, hey, I'm gonna download this app, and if a girl looks cute or I'm attracted to her and we have some good conversation, we'll see where it goes. Or like you didn't have your guard up on anything, right?
No, I didn't have my guard up on anything, but I will say this is where I fucked up because this is what I've learned since this. Um, is I didn't have a list of things that I was like, I need this for me, I need this for me. Like I figured out everything that happened in the marriage, and I understood like all that stuff. So all I was doing though was and I realize this now was I wanted what I wasn't getting in that marriage. So that's what I was looking for. Like I was just looking for that. I was like, not like really consciously looking for it. Like it wasn't like I was like, oh, I need attention. I need that. I wasn't anything like that. But like I could tell maybe that's probably what I was thinking now. And so I didn't necessarily have my guard up with these the girls and women or the women I was with. But I definitely wasn't giving them like all of me. Like I definitely wasn't like, but I also didn't go in like that. Like it was like a known thing. Like I wasn't on there like, I'm looking for the love of my life. And then, it's like, I just really want to hang out for a couple weekends or something. So like it was just kind of like that. And if I started feeling like it was getting a little bit more than what I was kind of getting into, like I would, we would just kind of talk it out, I guess. And kind of it is what it was, I guess.
So you
But I
weren't
don't
at
know what.
you weren't at a point where like you say like hang out for a couple weeks, but if you could tell that they were starting to get close, like you were at a point where you were going to put a wall up because you just weren't at a point where like you were ready to open yourself back up to somebody.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It wasn't even I was put a. I mean, I guess it was a wall, but it wasn't even. I mean, it was a conversation. Like, look, like when we talked, we kind of said this wasn't going to get anything serious, and I could kind of tell maybe it might be going that way. And I don't want, I didn't want to hurt them. It was like I was looking out to just be like this, woman hater dude that's just doing whatever. So, so I mean, some people, most of them took it. I mean, like I said, it was mutual almost on every one of the occasions. There might have been one or two that it got kind of off the wall a little bit, but and I don't even know what it was about this particular person that I decided to let my guard down. Okay, well, I should say I wasn't looking for that. What ended up happening was, so we're supposed to go on a date. She canceled on me. And I was like,
You
okay,
start?
cool. Yeah, great start. And then the second time, when we finally got another like day that we could like actually coordinate, um, we're driving halfway. I'm halfway there, and I'm talking Anderson. I mean, like it's like an hour from where I'm at. I'm like damn near getting close to there, and all of a sudden I get a text, and she's like, "I got to cancel," and I'm like, "You gotta be kidding me!" And I was like, that's cool. I was like, no big deal. I said, but yeah, I was like, this obviously isn't gonna work out. I'm not even, because I thought maybe
Yeah.
like I was just like, I didn't want to be that guy that's like, oh, you like me, and then so I was just like, yeah, it's cool, we're done. And then she's like, okay, well, no, hold on. And then she was like, well, okay, no. She's like, I got it worked out. Just go ahead and come on up here. I was like, good Lord. I was like, all right. So it was a rocky start. I was already like, what the hell? And then, our date was a pretty normal date. We just went to B-Dubs. We went to somewhere. She wanted to go somewhere we could talk and have a couple drinks, watch the games. She said she likes sports. So they all do. And so, and the only thing I was kind of, she, she was attractive to me. We were having a good conversation. I wasn't really expecting anything more, but anyway, I was vibing with her. I mean, it was fun. And it was another thing with her is I never got that full on conversation with her about what I was kind of looking for. So we kind of went in a little less like normally, like everyone, like, I've already talked to them, kind of told them how I feel. She hadn't really known. So while we're talking, I just felt like a good vibe or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it was time to leave. And I dropped her back off at the house, and I was heading home, and I had to work early the next morning. And she sends me a text, and she was like, hey, I had a really good time. She's like, I really wish it didn't have to end. And, I'm like, yeah, me too. I had a great time. And, obviously I wish I didn't, didn't end too. And she's like, uh, you wouldn't want to come back, would you? And of course, I'm driving. I'm like, yeah, I'll come back. So, bust the UE on 69 and I head back. Um, and I think this is where it turned differently. And I don't think this conversation is going where everyone thinks it's going, because it's not. Um, so I get there, and she kind of opens up and got real vulnerable with me, and was like, I've had a really hard time sleeping alone lately. And, it's like, do you mind if we just like get into bed and watch a movie and, just go to sleep? And I'm like, I know I'm a good guy. So like, I'm not worried. In my head, I'm like, is this bitch crazy? Like, she doesn't know me. Like, she's okay with this. So, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. She's not a bitch. But, so I was just like, okay. So we get into bed, and I don't know what it was. Like, it was just like this side of me that I didn't realize I was wanting. Like, I wanted that, and it
Yeah.
kind of it just caught me off guard, I think. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting there, and I'm like kind of like, like rubbing my hands on her, and like she's like laying on me, and she fell asleep probably within 10 minutes. And then like I kind of like, this is so lame, I know, but like I kind of like took my hand and like put her hair around her ear and stuff, and she kind of like opened her eyes, and she kind of looked at me, and then she kind of like went back to sleep, and she like kind of just like melted in my arms. And I don't know what it was, but it
Yeah.
just made me feel
Yeah.
like, man, I haven't had this in a while, and this feels really, really good. And I think that's what hooked me in when I wasn't really ready for that, and it caught me off guard.
Let's do this. So as you're kind of telling the story as you progress, like tell the story in the moment, and then then like let's look at it in hindsight. And so you just talked about like the early stages of meeting her, like the Mike of now, like let's even make the sake of the argument, like maybe the Mike of now wouldn't even be attracted to that woman out of the gate for whatever reason. But let's say
Right.
you were in that situation, you're driving back, you had a good normal conversation at B-Dub. She calls and said, hey, I don't want the date to be over. I want you to come back. Like right now, would you still do that? Or would you ask more questions about like, hey, it's date one. Like, I'm not like, do you think you would have handled like the initial date differently now, knowing what you know?
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah, I would have definitely handled it different. I just went home and been like, I had a great time. Like, we'll have to play it another time. Like,
Yeah.
just, tonight's not going to be the night. Like, I'm not staying out. Because one, I had to be at work at 5 in the morning. It's an hour away. Like, I wasn't ready for work. Like, I didn't bring work clothes. Like, all that stuff I would have not have done.
But it's just like and this is, I mean, I think this story, like this is so key, man. It's especially for guys coming off of a divorce or a long relationship where they've been deprived of something, is you were in a situation now where like you felt like this affection and this desire to be needed, and like you could see it in real time how she says she hasn't been sleeping and she's cuddled into you and she's falling asleep and makes you feel good. Like, dude, I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
100% get it.
No, and I'll never forget this too. And then she says the next morning, like really early when I was leaving, she was just like, I want you to know, it's like, nobody has touched me like that in like years, like the way you did. And I'm just like, we just met, and like, yeah, I know I'm affectionate, and I know, I mean, like, I guess, but hearing her say that, I was just like, oh yeah, I'm the best. Like, it was just weird. I don't even know what it was, but I was like, oh, you appreciate what I'm doing. Like, okay, like, I think I like that a lot. Honestly, like, I would love that right now. And man, did it put blinders on my face. I mean, I was just like, all of a sudden, just whatever she wanted is what I was gonna do. Like, it was weird. Like, it was so weird, because I just wasn't going into it thinking this way at all. And all those things did is completely turn my whole mindset around. And all I wanted to do was be that guy for her all of a sudden, just like that.
Yeah. So that's date one. So let's fast forward from like date one to like 90 days in. 90 days in, are you just completely immersed? Are you guys texting, phone call every day, seeing each other all the time? Like
Oh,
fully,
yeah.
like,
Yeah, 90 days in. Already I love yous. Already texting every day. Oh, dude, I know. This is how you know. This is what I've learned. I've learned very much from this. Just constant love bombs. I mean, everything you could think of. She was just hyping me. She was like my biggest hype man. I mean, like it was insane. Like she was saying everything right. She was doing everything like in a ridiculous, like over the top way to like make me feel like I don't know, like it. I I don't. I've so it's so immature to me now, like thinking back, like how I was, and embarrassing, really. Like I'm like, man, like every morning there was text messages. Like we wouldn't go any hour without a message between each other. I mean, it got so ridiculous. I just like I look back now, I'm like, oh my god, how did I even handle doing anything besides talking to her?
It's funny, man. It's like now, like that type of like love bombing, like over the
Oh,
top affection is probably now a turnoff
a
versus
super turn off.
because like where you were in life and like I mean I've been there, dude. Like that external validation is like you feel like at least I did like there's still part of you of like a failure because the marriage failed or whatever, and like now here's this person that's come in and just completely breathed new life into you, and you just get it's intoxicating, absolutely
It was,
intoxicating.
yeah, it was absolutely intoxicating, and I took it all, just ate it up, just hook, line, and sinker. I mean, it. She had me and at her disposal in any way, and it was crazy because like, yeah, I don't even know how it happened. Like, it's still, I mean, now I understand, but like at the time, I was just like, oh, this chick's like the best, like, and then. But what I will say is, like early on, it seemed like she had everything together because obviously I still had standards. Like, well, I'm going to make sure I'm with somebody who's not just some complete bum, you know.
Yep.
Um, and everything she said at first, I was like, cool, like this could work out pretty well, like And then little by little, she started like telling me things. And, I mean, it was all really, really slow and just every now and then would kind of throw something out. And, I can look back now and be like, holy shit, what was I thinking? But like at the time, one little thing here where she's like, oh, actually, I'm not working right now when she told me she was. I'm like, oh, okay. We had some excuse why she wasn't at the moment. Um, I'm like, okay, that's not a big deal, I guess. Everyone, sometimes has to find a new job. Um, and then just little by little, like story after story, they all started kind of getting changed on me. But like again, I was so all of a sudden, like that moment and that night was just so crazy and silly. But like I became like her protector. Like I was like, I need to, and
Mhm.
I guess damsel in the store, whatever you want to say, like I need to save this person. And the more shit she threw on me, the more I was like, all right, I got this. Like, come on. I mean, like, especially when she would say things like, I've never had somebody like you. Like, I've always been treated like this, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's done this to me. Like, I've had this life mishap. And, here I am, Super Mike, like, ready to the rescue and do whatever I got to do. And man, what an idiot.
Well, yeah, the whole self-shaming thing is like a completely different topic. I know we talked about that a little bit. There's, had you not gone through that experience or this experience, like you wouldn't be where you are today. So in a sense, it is like a gift. And that's something that, I mean, I'm trying to embrace too. Like all these things that have happened, don't look at it as like, woe is me, like victim mentality. Like we wouldn't be having this podcast. We wouldn't be sharing these stories. We wouldn't be the people we are today if we hadn't gone through that stuff. So,
Right.
there's something you said about that. So I know you said like looking back now, like some of those warning signs, like you can pinpoint from date one and they're so clear now, but like as you think back in the relationship of where you were, at what point were you like in the relationship where like in the moment you're like, okay, like now shit's starting to get like a little weird. Like I can tell I'm not aligning like this, like that same level of infatuation is still there, but like now I'm like, now the stress and anxiety is starting to pile up. At what point where you're like, okay, this thing's starting to turn a little bit here?
Yeah, it was probably right around 3 months. And like I said, we were already, you know, just kind of there. Um, and it was a phone call that she had with me, and she was like, yeah, I have to leave. I have to go to Illinois for the weekend. So I'm not gonna be able to hang out. I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. I was like, what are you doing in Illinois? And she's like, don't freak out. I don't want you to be upset. She's like, but I have to go there to see my husband to him sign the divorce papers. And I was like, do what? And she's like, I didn't want to tell you because she's like, I wanted to tell you, but like we got so quick involved and like I really liked you. Like I didn't want to scare you away. And I was just worried that this was gonna do it. And we've already been separated and this has been basically finalized. I just need him to sign these papers and blah blah blah. And I was like, I was like, that's a pretty big thing not to tell somebody. Like we're already saying stuff like I love you. You didn't tell me. I was like, I'm done. I was like, even though I was so into her, like I was already at that. I was like, man, that's a big thing not to tell me. So I was already done. I was gonna be done. And she got really upset on the phone. She was doing her sob story why she didn't, and she was kind of working me a little bit, and I was kind of like, I liked her a lot, so I wanted to forgive her. But I still was like, you know what, like I just need, like, I'm getting off here. Like I'm not talking to you right now. So that was kind of like, I thought maybe if she would have left me alone, that probably would have been the end of it because I wasn't going to call her back. But she was very persistent and kept texting me, telling me how great I am and how she doesn't want to fuck this up. She fucks everything up and she's so mad and blah, blah, blah. And after like 3 days of self-pity text messages to me and still telling me how amazing I am, I finally like gave in and talked to her a little bit. And I was like, how could you not tell me this? Like, this is, fucked up. And, I don't remember exactly what she said, but she like, whatever she said, she got me to be a little, I was still mad. And, but she somehow worked her way into letting it be like for me to understand enough, I guess. Cause I'm like, I guess I get it, when you're separated for a while. She's like, I've been separated for this, this long. She's like, and then she told me why he had signed the papers because he was in prison. So I'm like, oh my God. So there was that. So then I'm like trying to think like, okay, he's been in prison. Like maybe that's why, I still was mad that she didn't tell me. But anyways, I let it go. Because again, all those messages she was sending me that were making me feel good, even though I was mad, I was still getting all these things. And it just got me to go back. I mean, it did. I stayed, obviously.
So already like 3 months in, like that trust that you're supposed to be building as the relationship goes, that's the first like crack in the well where it's like, well, she's not been honest, she's lying. And now like, did it just build from there where like, her saying certain things or like, I guess continue the story then. So like from 3 to 6 months, and I know you guys lived together at some point, like kind of just maybe share a couple stories of like how more shit seemed to not align with you and what you wanted, but every time maybe you tried to bring it up, like it just sucked you back in further. Like if there's a couple like specific stories that you can share.
Oh man, there's a lot. Honestly, I can think of so many things. Like the whole she didn't have custody of her kids thing. I was really confused by, um, and her story was that she lived in Carmel and they lived in Shelbyville, and they had this high-powered lawyer from Carmel, and the judge in Shelbyville kind of was just like turned off by it and was like, look, like your kids were here. So she, they were from Shelbyville. So anyway, she got me somehow to believe that bullshit story. So there's so many little things like that. But I will say, like after that whole thing, I was still kind of like, she could tell I was kind of like not my normal self with her, and she was doing everything she could to like make me feel better. So I will say, so there was the whole kids thing. There was a guy friend that she had, and it was one of the first times we went out together. And she like told me about him, and she's like, don't be, like, don't get weirded out if you see him and he's like giving you a dirty look. And I'm like, what? So there's just like all these little things, and I'll never forget, like when she hugged him, like he like closed his eye. I mean, like I was like, I immediately was like, that dude likes you, right? And she's like, what are you talking about? I was like, that dude clearly likes you. And she's like, oh my God, no, he's been my friend. Like he was a friend of my husband, and we kind of have this thing, and it's just all these things. Where in my head, I'm like, just back out of this. Like, what are you doing? But then as soon as like she would come back around and stroke my ego or whatever it wasn't like she was just like always stroking my ego, but she was giving me the things that clearly I must have been wanting. Attention, like, just like feeling like my needs were being heard and all that stuff. And I just kept ignoring him and ignoring him and ignoring him. Now, I will say all these things were starting to add up for me, and I was kind of getting um, ready to, I don't know, just I wasn't feeling it as much. And then she dropped the whole "I have cancer" bomb on me. So, and I can look back now and say she probably did that because she felt me pulling away.
Mhm.
Because I will say already at this point now, she hasn't been working. She's needing money, and I am giving her. I'm giving her money. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, I got you. Like, I'm no big deal. So I'm giving her money. So it all makes sense now, but at the time, it just seemed like it was what a couple, like a guy helping out his girl at the time she was needing it. But yeah, she dropped cancer on me, and me being me, I'm like, oh shit, like, what can I do? Like, I'll take you to the doctors. Like, I'll do this, I'll do that. And I mean, but this is so embarrassing. Like, go ahead. What were you
No,
gonna
yeah,
say something?
go ahead.
I would say it's so embarrassing how much dumb shit I like believed. Like, I mean, like, even admitting it, talking to anybody about it, I'm so embarrassed. It's so embarrassing.
But like, I mean, and we've talked about this on previous podcasts. Like, you just don't know, man. Like, if you've never been through that, and if you haven't, and you have been so instrumental in like teaching me, like, you gotta accept your pain and understand and work through it. And there's some other things that I'm involved with now that like I'm so excited about like this whole like self-development journey and like really trying to understand like why I did certain things I did in the past and like, the man I want to become and kind of the code I want to live by and all that stuff. And like part of it is like, this whole self-sabotage, shaming yourself of past mistakes. Like you didn't know better. And like, I'm here, like I'm reading or I'm listening to your story and it's like, I mean, not to like pour it on you, but like, we're just, so it's,
Yeah.
still technically married, not truthful about like what the custody relationship is with their kids, potential fake, like serious medical condition. You're, giving this woman money to finance her lifestyle because she's not working. So like on the outside, anybody that would see that be like, that's a train wreck. But like what people don't understand is like if you're not at the right headspace and you've come out of this, terrible divorce or relationship where it's been so deficient on certain things, like those things may be like glaring to somebody in the outside, but at the same time, like if you're getting, massive like love and attention and sex and, they're just filling your cup because they're making you feel like you're the best person in the world. Like it's just so easy to turn a blind eye to that and then just love like what you're getting in the moment.
Yeah. No, it is. And I mean, I was being manipulated at expert levels. Like, I thought I was always such a smart guy. People couldn't do that to me. But my skills had diminished because, out of high school, you date in high school, you date in high school. You're not looking for any of this stuff. You're in high school. Then you even get to college level and stuff like that. Still really not. And then, I get married at, 20, 21. Um, so like I haven't brushed up on anything like that. So when you go back out in the dating world, it is dangerous because I didn't realize the type of people that could be out there. Not only the type of people that could be out there, but the type of people that can lie and make up so much shit and do it so convincingly, or at least get me to believe it that you could actually get into bad situations. And that's exactly what happened to me. I found the absolute worst person in the world to find, and I had no idea what was coming, and it hit me like a freaking hurricane. I mean, it's crazy. Like, she manipulated me and made me do things I would never do. I would never, like, normal me would do. And I'm not making excuses. Like, it's still all on me. Like, some of the things I did, like she definitely strained the relationship between me and the kid's mom, because all of a sudden I'm picking up kids late or I'm doing all these things that I normally wouldn't have done. And she was doing it in such a way, like, man, I mean, like, I mean, I guess we can start diving into the more insane stuff. So Okay, so let's just talk about the cancer thing, for instance. Okay, um, that of course got me to stop caring about everything else that's happened and just want to help her, because I'm thinking like, oh my god, like she told me it was stage 4. That's like stage 4 is you're dying, like basically. Um, and not one part of me thought she was lying, not one single part. Um, and she would cry about it, and she would tell me like all these things and how it ran in her family and all this shit. I mean, like she had stories for days. And here I am just like listening to her, going in her house, like all the windows would have like dark curtains on them. She'd be in a blanket and she would act like she's shivering. Um, I mean, just like so many things that really got me to think she was dying. And so like I started acting accordingly. Um, like missing, and this is what break this is the hardest thing to even admit, is missing time with my kids. Like I would literally make up an excuse and be like, she's dying. Like in my head, this is how I would justify it. Like, because she would be like, I'm dying. She's like, I may not make it like another month. And she's like, I don't have much time. And I mean, like I still was like, I gotta go. But she was like, but you're the only person I have. And I would, I mean, if she would break me down enough to where I would eventually call and be like, I can't get the kids today. Like, I can't. I mean, like, I literally breaks, I can't even, I don't even like admitting it. Like, it's awful. Um,
Well, I know. I mean, I appreciate you sharing that, and I know that the guy you are now, like you crave like the time that you have with your kids, and you're such a good dad. It's like, and then maybe some of that. I mean, you would be like that anyway, but I'm sure some of that goes back to the time you feel like you probably missed because of all this bullshit.
yeah, it is. And, I have always been a good dad. And like the fact that I actually did miss time, it just breaks my heart. And I've talked to the kids about it, and it's all fine now. But man, during it was awful. Like you want to talk about soul crushing? Like I was dying inside. Like I really was. Like I remember feeling such a heavy weight on my back. Like trying to think I was like saving this person for whatever reason, and trying to balance everything out. Like trying to balance my family being mad I wasn't around as much. Um, you know, the kid's mom and I had a great relationship, and it's getting strained, and I'm trying to like keep that okay somehow, and the kids, and it was just so much. I wasn't seeing my friends.
You were kind of off the radar for a long period of time.
I mean, I was, and this is the reason why. So okay, so let's just fast forward. So let's just say the whole dying of cancer thing. Somehow she just kept not dying from cancer, and to the point where eventually months later it was a wrong diagnosis kind of thing. Because like everyone was at, because I eventually told like my family and like kid's mom like she's dying, and they were like, is she dying still? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, have you gone to anything? I'm like, she doesn't let me go. I mean, like all these like all these things I could just tell you now. I'm like, wow, you are an idiot, Mike. And I was an idiot. Um, and I just kept believing and believing and believing, or not, maybe not wanting to believe that they weren't true. And all those things kept going on. But what she ended up doing is like it got really abusive, like mentally, never physically. Like she got so like we would like hang out and drink, and it would be fun. And then she would get to this point where all of a sudden she was like getting real mean towards me and like saying shit, like weird shit. Like she would like put me down. She would like say all this like crazy shit. And I knew she was drunk, so like I didn't do anything about it. But like the next day, she would like be all apologetic and be upset and be like, "That's what all my like guys I've been with have done to me, and now I finally meet a good guy, and I'm doing it to you, and I feel so bad." Like all these things were somehow I was in an abusive relationship, didn't even know it, and in my head I wasn't, and that's why I kind of like it's weird because like I just assume abusive and I think it's physical, but like man, you can get mentally fucked and not know it, and she was like mentally fucking me like nobody's business, and the reason why it was working is because she had pulled me away from everybody. She pulled me away from my family, and I'm super close with my family. She pulled me away from my friends, super close with my friends. She pulled me away from everybody. And so what I ended up doing was not wanting to burden anybody. So I didn't tell anybody anything. Nobody knew anything. They just didn't see me anymore. When they saw me, I wasn't the same me. and I would make up some bullshit reason why. But like, yeah, because I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear another speech from like, my mom telling me that she's terrible for me and all this stuff. And I'm like, you just don't know her and all this. I'm defending her like she's worth
Yep.
defending. It's crazy.
Yep. That's why I mean you should never make a decision solely off of what your friends or family say, but like these people have known you for a long time and you can pick up on stuff. And if everybody's kind of telling you the same thing, like there's probably some level of truth to it there,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So
Yeah, there is. And
so
to kind of, yeah.
yeah, what like talk now toward the end, like all this stuff, like fake diagnoses. You guys maybe drink, have fun. It turns bad. Next morning, it's all lovey dovey again. Like at what point were you like, okay, enough is enough? Like I've got to start the process of like I got to change my life here. I got to get out of this.
Right. Okay. So I'll say that, but I have to go back just a little bit to kind of say how I got there. So,
Yeah.
so the whole cancer thing, all that, crazy enough, still there. Um, Next thing that started happening, besides the getting drunk and being like mentally abusive, and then next morning being super nice and super physically awesome in certain things and all that stuff, and then I'm still like it got to the point where it was like, we need to live together. Like we need to move in together. So we ended up getting a place together. Um, but under the promise that, she was going to start working. Um, it didn't happen. She's never ended up working, and I'm giving her money for like, things she's saying she's needing. And it's like killing me. Like I'm not making enough money all of a sudden. I have my kids, and now her kids started coming around a lot more because I was there. And her baby's dad, like the kids loved me. And he was like, they love being over there now. Like, so, I'm going to let her, let you guys have them. So they came over more. So I'm like trying to feed everybody, trying to do all this stuff. Um, I ended up getting a second job, trying to do all this stuff. And then I ended up trying to get in a third job. And she's still not working. And, so all that's going on. But then what started to end up happening was all of a sudden when I would be leaving for work, she started getting really like mad, like upset, and like, where are you going? I'm like, I'm going to work. And she's like, you can't go to work. Like, I need you here right now. And, she would tell me she had anxiety. She had all these things. All of a sudden, we're all coming out. And I'm like, I have to go to work. We would have an hour argument that I needed to leave for work. And she would be getting upset and like throwing stuff, throwing my shit, like saying that, I'm leaving to go do something else. And I got my work trying to text, like trying to ask her what the hell's going on. And like, I'm sorry, I'm running late. And like, what the hell's going on? I have all this going on. And this was almost every day. I mean, every day, whether I was doing anything, it was going to hang out with friends. Like I'll never forget, there was a night that it was like we were gonna play cards one night, and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go hang out with my friends, play cards. This is when it started getting really crazy. She was like, if you leave, I'm gonna probably kill myself tonight. And I mean, like you talk about, I've never been around stuff like this, so like in my head, I'm like, what? I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, I'm just over everything. I really, she's like, just go, have fun. Seriously, I'm done. I just want to die anyways. And dude, I mean, it fucked me up. I mean, I was like, holy shit. Like, I definitely have to stay. And I remember I canceled on everybody. And I still hated it. Like, as I'm canceling, I'm like, inside, I'm like dying. I'm like, dude, this is terrible. And, I'm like trying to control her. And she's like, hyperventilating and getting all weird. She starts seizing up, or at least what I thought was seizing up. That was another thing. So eventually she started throwing seizures out, like she was having seizures. And of course, I'm like freaking out. Every single time I was getting ready to call 911, she would kind of come out of it and like, I'm fine, I'm fine. Like crazy shit, man. So like eventually it got to the point where I'm missing work. I'm not seeing friends. I'm not seeing family because every time I'm leaving, she's threatening to kill herself. I left, came back. She's been hanging. I had to cut her down. She tried to take a bunch of pills and kill herself. I mean, like, man, all these things that I called 911 one time, had them come and get her because I'm leaving for work. And she's like, I'm sending you the video right now of cutting my wrist. Fuck you. And hung up. And she'd never done something like that. So like I was terrified. I told work I can't come in again. Called 911, told them what's going on. They show up. They take her to the hospital. She had to stay for 3 days because of the mental thing. And the whole time she's in there, they gave her phone back for some reason. She's texting me saying that she's so sorry. I mean, like all these things, man, and like it just kept happening and happening and happening. And I think I finally just got to the point where I was like, if she threatened her to kill herself one more time, I mean, this had to be the 15th, 16th, 17th, maybe 30th time. I don't even know. I was done. I was like, look, she's like, she had to go to her mom's who lives in Ohio. And she was like all upset and she went there anyways. And I packed everything up I had and left. And I told her that. And she freaked out on the phone when I told her. And she's like, no, you didn't, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, just to let you know, like, I'm going to go ahead and kill myself and I'm going to do heroin and blah, 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 blah. And she would leave. I just hung up the phone because I was just like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. Like in my head, I finally figured out, I'm like, it's not my fault if she does this, but I still felt super guilty. Like it was going to be my fault. She called me, left voice messages on my phone. I didn't answer. And she sounded so fucked up. I mean, like she clearly had done heroin. Like she had to have. Like I couldn't even understand what she was saying. She came back like 2 weeks later and saw that I actually did move out, and she freaked out even more. Yeah, so I thought I was done. Like I was done. I mean, I was done. Like in my head, I was done. Like I was like, this isn't safe anymore. Like I don't want my kids around you. Like, you know, she didn't do any of this stuff when the kids were around. Like it was always normal when the kids were around. But man, as soon as the kids left, it was like she turned it right back on. And it was crazy, man. It was so much. I had lost so much weight. Everyone thought I was on drugs because I looked like a crackhead, I think. I mean, I really did. Like I didn't see it at the time, but I've seen a couple pictures. And I'm like, oh my God, how did nobody just like grab me?
like the man, like how you went through all that stuff without having any support is mind blowing. Like that's the whole like I'm gonna kill myself stuff. I mean, you know, that's like, I mean, you talk about like these relationships where like you become a fixer and you're trying to, you know, take on their problems. Like that's next level stuff right there. That's man.
It is. Yeah, it's so next level. And it just, yeah, it fucked me up so much. I felt such a need to save her. No, I mean, like not the time. At the time, I just thought, I don't even know what I thought at the time. I can't even like describe what I was going through or what I was thinking in my head to justify things. I would justify everything though in my head, only in my head. If I said it out loud, it never sounded good, and it always seemed like I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing. In my head, this is kind of how I talked about earlier in some of our earlier podcasts. Like her voice was in my head, and like I would talk myself out of everything in my head because I didn't talk to anybody. This is like the biggest thing I've learned is you have to talk to somebody. Like even if you're not even talking to somebody that's maybe going to give you great advice, saying it out loud really does sound different than when it is in your head. In your head,
yes.
You can manipulate anything.
Like even if you're not saying it to somebody else, like as weird as it sounds, like if you just verbalize it and you hear it, it's totally different than you just thinking thoughts in your head, because your brain is so good at rationalizing and making like excuses, and that's the worst, man. Like saying that's like, I couldn't agree more. God, such a good point.
Yeah, it really is. And like, so I left. Like I thought I was done. It was all good. Yeah, you know what? I really okay. So let me take this back. It actually happened slightly different. Like it happened that way, but here's what happened to where it was like absolutely cannot do this anymore. Okay, so I kind of skipped a couple parts. All this crazy stuff was going on. Thanksgiving happened right around this time. I broke up. I was like, I'm done. So why I was done was I found out like the guy that was gonna look at me weird, all that stuff, was around all the time. Was like always around, and she would always tell me like he's just a friend, all this stuff. Like he found her some work, so she started getting a little bit of money coming in. Never lasted very long. He also was letting her borrow a car because she didn't have a car. So all these things, like this guy kept having to stay around. I remember one time I was coming home, and for whatever reason, I wasn't paying attention. I missed my turn, and I started coming around the backside, and I seen this dude running out of the place and then leaving. I came in, and she's like, he was just dropping me off something, I swear, blah, blah, blah. I was like, I'm done. We're done. So that was it. Thanksgiving was it. All the way through like the next 2 weeks. She brought her mom from Ohio over. They were staying at her place. I left. And she was like constantly, her mom was texting me, telling me how, upset her daughter is, and that, she's really hoping that I can figure this out because she really thinks I'm good for her, all these things. So eventually I ended up going over there one time, and uh, I'm still like standoffish, and she's being super sweet, and all this stuff is going on, and we all hang out, and eventually, like, she somehow, woos me back into forgiving her. So then the next like month, less than a month, she is like superwoman, like just almost kind of how I was in the beginning. Everything she was doing was perfect. Everything was right. Like she was saying everything I wanted to hear. She was doing everything I wanted her to do. And she actually actually got me to ask her to marry me, dude. That happened. That happened. I can't even believe it. After everything that happened, after all the dumb shit I went through, I asked her to marry me on Christmas Day, which I would never do normally. Like to me, that's such a lame thing to do on Christmas Day. But like it was something she had mentioned. And the fact that I was worried to tell everybody should have told me everything I needed to know about this whole thing. So I told my family. Mom wasn't happy, I could tell. All my other family tried to pretend like they were happy. There's no way they could have been. So we end up going to her mom's in Ohio. And while we were there, the guy that was her friend sent pictures to me and pictures to his mom, and there were pictures of her and him. And of course, so I left immediately. So that's how I left her in Ohio, and that's when I was done. And I was like, I don't care. She's like, I'm gonna kill myself. I'm like, I don't care anymore. Like, it's not on me. Like, I'm done with this shit. So yeah, so that all happened. And you would think that's the end of the story, because why wouldn't it be the end of the story? But after another, I'd say probably 2 months of me not giving a fuck and just not giving her the time of day, there was still a part of me that just felt the need to let her keep talking to me for some reason. Like I didn't block anything. I just left it open. Even though I wasn't talking back, I just
Yeah.
left it open. And she got back and she was like, look, like, I know you're mad at me and I know you're upset and, you have every right to be because, blah, blah, blah. She's like, look, I need closure. I just want us to end on a good note. She's like, I understand it's over. I get it. Like, I get it now. I just, one night to just like hang out and do it. She's like, look, we don't even have to be here. She's like, let's go to the casino. And, if people that know me know that's like, I love going to the casino. So I'm like, nah, I'm good. And she's like, seriously, she's like, we'll go to the casino. She's like, and it'll be quick. And then we come back and be done and, it'll be fun. I'm like, fine. So we go to the casino and I'm in my head. I'm like, she's not getting near me. She's not touching me. I'm not letting her do anything. Like, I am just going to go to the casino. We go to the casino. I have a drink. We're hanging out. We're talking. We're starting to kind of talk about stuff. And I'm like, yeah, it's just, I don't trust you, blah, blah, blah. I hit $1,000 on a slot machine. I'm all excited. So I get all excited. And so now I'm all happy. And I order a couple more drinks. I'm all excited. And we're talking some more. And then, like we're talking more. And like she's still kind of like understanding I don't want her touching me. But then, Austin's put a hand on my leg and I finally just like allow it. So I'm like feeling good. We end up going back and I'm like, all right, I'm probably gonna leave. She's like, come on. She's like, just stay she's like, it's early. She's like, just stay a little bit longer. Just wanted my money. She's like, let's have some drinks. So that ends up happening. She ends up leaving, comes back out in freaking lingerie. You gotta understand the rest, you don't understand. And next thing I know, I'm like, fuck. Like now I'm stuck. Now I'm not leaving because I'm not going to, now she knows. It's like, I'm not going to, all that's not going to happen. I'm just not going to bounce. So now I stay, and then we cuddle. And then the more we cuddle, the more I'm like getting more attached. And the more I'm getting attached, the more I'm in my head like, oh my God, like I'm not gone now. Like I know it. Like, so then the conversations kept picking up. I told myself I was never going to move back in. I never did. But what ended up happening was I was there all the time. Anytime I didn't have the kids, I was there. I would go before work. I would show up and just lay with her for a minute and then go to work. Like I would get up earlier just to go do that. Like all these stupid things I was doing. And in my head, I'm like, I want to leave. I want to leave. I want to leave. And then like all these other things still kept happening. She still was doing all this dumb shit. And in my head, I'm like, I'm still leaving. Like in my head, I'm like, I'm leaving. I'm just doing this for now. Why? I don't know. Like that's what I couldn't figure out. I was like, why do I feel so bad if I just left? Like I felt really guilty at the thought of it. Like I was doing something wrong by just like leaving her be. And but I know why, because that's what she would tell me. Like she's like, I can't believe you're gonna tell somebody you love them and then just not give a fuck and leave and know that they have nobody. Like she kept saying all that stuff, and that stuff she definitely knew how to get to me. Because then I'm like, yeah, I can't do that. I can't leave her. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then she told me she was pregnant, and you know, and this was like 5 months after I was trying to leave her for good. And um, normally that would be like, okay, well, holy shit. But the problem is I've had a vasectomy. So like it's never happened before, but she throws that at me. And she knew though, because she could tell me I was pulling away. She knew that I was kind of like, oh, fuck, like if you are like, okay, like, so she's starting to get that like help Mike guy again that needs to help and save and all that stuff. And now like she's pregnant, even though in my head I'm like, it can't be mine. Like in my head I'm thinking she's lying. She's not pregnant. She's not pregnant. Like that's what I was thinking in my head. There's no way she's pregnant. Because she was not acting like she was pregnant. She still wanted to drink. She's still doing all these things like a normal pregnant person wouldn't be doing. So I'm thinking in my head, like, this is just another one of her things. And here I am kind of now being like weirdly just like, I feel like I'm kind of using her, but like at the same time, I'm really not, because I really didn't want to be there. But like I just kept getting sucked back in to talk to her, and I kept letting her, and even though we were like not seeing each other as much, like, yeah, it just, and there's so many other little stories I'm like skipping. Like there's, she told me she was raped once, and it was a lot. I mean, like all these things, man. Like so for anyone who's wondering how I ended up back with her, that's what it was. Like first, there was an actual video of it, and she convinced me it wasn't really her on there. Like convinced me enough to where I was just like brushing it off. There's just so many stories I could tell. It would just take forever to like remember every single one of them. But yeah, so to kind of wrap this up. The pregnancy thing just kept happening, was longer and longer and longer. She wasn't really getting any bigger though. And I thought to myself, like, there's just no way. But like, she started saying things like, you're not going to take care of your kid. Like you're a deadbeat dad. And like that kind of stuff would like destroy me if somebody thought that of me. And I'm like, oh man, she's right. Like I can't just like fucking cut out now. So I finally talked to somebody though. I had a friend. She was somebody I talked to, I worked with when I was in my marriage, and kind of towards the end of it, she kind of helped me out a little bit. She like really had good advice for me. I would listen. So we became really good friends, and we had been friends throughout this whole time. But we don't, it's like one of those friends we don't talk to all the time. We kind of catch up every now and then. We try to. And then, she kind of just messaged me one day at a moment where I'm like really upset. I think I was driving to work, and it was like an hour drive. And I was like, I really think I need to talk to you. And she called me like immediately. And I kind of gave her the gist of what was going on. And I kind of told her, I was like, yeah, like, I'm trying to get out of this, but she's telling me she's pregnant. And she's like, Mike, like you've had a vasectomy. You've had a vasectomy 10 years ago. You've never had anybody pregnant since. She's like, what are you thinking? I'm like, well, it could be. She's like, no, it can't be. She's like, you know what? She's like, if you need reassurance, go to a doctor and go get tested and see if you can have a child. And I'm like, you know what? That's a good idea. For whatever reason, I couldn't think of myself. But like talking to her, she was so convincing. Like, you're an idiot. Like, what are you thinking? Like, she's clearly trying to keep you around. So I did it. I did it that day. She's like, you got to do it today. She's like, you go do it today, and then we'll figure this out. So I went. I got the results back like 3 days later. The doctor said there's no way that you could have a kid, and I called her that day, and I said, we're done. Don't ever talk to me again. I finally, she was on my phone plan. I called. I took her phone off. I just completely deleted her out of my life. And that was the best thing because I know how weak I was. And it wouldn't take much for her to keep staying around. And I had to completely remove her before it would happen. Because, dude, it would just never have happened, I don't think.
Well, let's do that because I have like 20 questions I'm going to ask you about like the end of this and just kind of how you move past it. So let's do this, man. Let's break this up into 2 parts. Let's do
Okay.
we'll do another one Friday, and we'll do part 2 because I know in past conversations I've had outside of the podcast with you, I know there's a couple other things that happened that I want to dive into, but I'm really curious, like the next 2 months after you finally got done, like just how you processed it all. And so, as a dude, and kudos to you, man, for coming on here. Obviously, we're gonna put this out. Like some of those stories that you told, like I mean, I'm proud of you, man, because like you could definitely shame yourself and like I can't believe I did all that stuff, but lessons learned, man.
Yeah. Well, I've just learned, like, just because I know when I first did it, I just remember feeling so dumb. And I still feel really dumb. Like, but I'm further enough removed now, I can kind of understand what was going on better. But so, yeah, I literally, as much as this like sucks to share, especially like publicly like this, like, I don't mind telling people individually. But man, no one who knows who could see this, like, yeah, like, but it's what happened. It's the story I had. So
That's
yeah,
your
it
true
sucked.
story. Well, I'm gonna get this up. We'll part 2 coming here in a couple days, man. We're gonna dive into this more. So until then, man, I appreciate you. Love you, buddy.
Yeah, love you too, man.